When I spoke in the Knesset, the first time that I represented a plan that is not mine, it's about 40 years old. Jordan is Palestine, or 2 states for 2 people on both sides of the Jordan River. It was Arieh Sharon plan, Yigal Allon, at the 70s. When I spoke about it in the Knesset, I had an interesting phone call from Amman. An old guy called me, said, I want to meet you. Come. A Palestinian, about 80 or 85, told me he was the right hand of Yasser Arafat in Jordan through Black September in the 70s, then in Lebanon. He said, I kidnapped the first Israeli in 1968 in Metula. And I insisted to exchange him for 1 Israeli soldier. 1 per 1. 1 Palestinian terrorist for 1 Israeli soldier, because this was my pride. Not 1,000 of ours for 1 soldier of yours, but 1 per 1. And then he discovered that Yasser Arafat is corrupt. It took him many years, I must admit. And then they apart. He told me, I listened to your speech at the Knesset, and I came all the way to tell you that you were absolutely right, except one thing. You said 80% of the population in Jordan are Palestinians. I'll tell you, we are 95%. Good news, okay. So why did you come? You could tell it by phone, say, no, I want your help. I want your help to help us to take over Jordan. It won't happen. It won't happen because we learned our lessons in Lebanon in '82. When we had our candidate for presidency in Lebanon, Bashir Jumayel, the Maronite, the Christian, and he was trained in Israel, taught in Israel. We pushed him forward, we helped him, we invaded Lebanon in order to remove the Palestinian and allow him to rule. We kissed him too much. We hugged him too strongly. The Syrian assassinated him. If we will take an opposition leader in Jordan, I have I exchange emails from him. Now he's in London. If we'll hug him and kiss him too strong and support him, they'll kill him. Justly, he will be recognized as the friend of the enemy. It must work from within. Their only request right now is that when this happens, when the riots in Jordan will start, please don't save King Abdullah. And the request is for Israel because they remember that we once did it to King Hussein in Black September. Let us do the job. Don't interfere. The same thing is relevant for the United States because the United States is heavily invested in Jordan. You build on the Hashemite. But once there are masses that will go to the street, nobody will be able to save the family, the royal family. They'll have to run away. And then, what happened then? Israel should go the next day and take the front pages of all the important papers in the world, congratulate the new Palestinian state that was born. Congratulations, you have a state. Gesundheit. I do not ignore the risk that such a Palestinian state may eventually will turn to a Hamas state. That will be extension of Iran. It happened in Lebanon, it happened in Gaza Strip, it may happen there. But it's 1,000 times better than to have such an extension of Iran in Judea and Samaria. Some people will say, keep the status quo. That's the best situation for you. You rule the land. You don't have to go into business. Abdallah will guard your eastern border from terrorists. If we could keep the status quo, okay. It's something to consider. But we can't. The tendency, the move, the shift, the dynamics, call it whatever, is taken not only the international arena towards more delegitimization of Israel, call us apartheid state, prevent us from doing the basics in Judea and Samaria, building for our own people. But the shift is also in the Israeli leadership. 4 years ago, Benjamin Netanyahu said, whoever says yes to a Palestinian state says no to the state of Israel. Now he said yes to a Palestinian state. Where does he put it? The left in Israel is shrinking. But not because people got smarter. The left shrinks because there's no need of the left. The right adopted their ideology. Years ago, if somebody would support a Palestinian state, that was only the extreme hallucinating left in Israel. Now it's the bon ton. It's the Bar Ilan speech of Netanyahu. He wants it. Who needs the left if they have the right? And that's the horse that I started with, that was stolen from so many people. I know that Netanyahu works under extreme pressure. I saw his face when he first came from President Obama. We were sitting at the Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee of the Knesset. I served in the IDF for 25 years as a physician. I know how to diagnose shell shock, PTSD. Netanyahu was like a soldier in a shell shock. He was deeply humiliated by President Obama, battered. And some of the basics of behavior of a soldier in a shell shock is that he will do whatever he can to avoid a second trauma. That's what Netanyahu is doing for the past 2.5 years, trying to avoid a second trauma. I left my hospital in order to practice preventive medicine, to prevent the creation of a Palestinian state. That's, for me, a preventive medicine. And I know that the existence of the State of Israel is dependent upon such a prevention. Rabin said in the only book that he wrote, a Palestinian state can be created only on the ruins of the State of Israel. I don't want to see my country destroyed. Therefore, I practice preventive medicine every day. But we do not forget, on these masses of events, under the smoke mask of the Arab Spring, that the Iranians are rushing for a nuclear bomb right now. They enjoy the destruction of the attention of the world. Who pays attention now? We have elections in Egypt. Who pays attention to the number of centrifuges that are rotating in Natanz in Iran? They have enough enrich uranium to produce almost 3 bombs, and they are beyond the technological threshold. They don't have any more technological problems to solve. It only takes a decision. Once they decide they want to move forward, they will have nuclear capabilities within 6 months. The window of time that we could do it relatively easily, relatively to what is now, when everything is much deeper in the ground and the infrastructure are better protected. When we had the opportunity to do it, the word from the United States echoed the sentences that President Johnson sent with Abba Eban in 1967 to the Israeli government. You remember what he said? If you'll act alone, you'll remain alone. But at that time, we had a better government, stronger leaders. They didn't pay attention. They act alone. This time, the Israeli government obeyed and didn't do anything. Nothing will stop Iran, not sanctions, not words, nonsense. They laugh at it. Someone of our friends recently visited Iran, and he said, it's flourishing. Nobody really noticed the sanctions. They don't know that they have sanctions. Nothing short than military attack will stop them. A military attack under the current situation is not a one blow. It's not a one strike. It's not like what we had in Iraq or in Syria. It will take weeks to push them backward. 5 years. We'll have a regional war. They will retaliate. Hezbollah and Hamas will be operated. I'm not sure where Syria will be at that time, but it will be a regional war. In any elongated regional war, we need resupply, refilling of missiles, ammunition, gasoline. The American threat is not to resupply us if we will dare doing it on our own. And that's the problem of Netanyahu right now. I hope that what we pray every Shabbat, that the Lord in heaven will put wisdom in the heads of our leaders and courage will actually work. Last thing about Tatzpit and your ability to help the Jewish settlement. Parashat HaShavua, Rabbi started with it. והיה כי תבוא אל הארץ, אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך נחלה וירשת וישבת בה. From the book of my father, about every week's chapters in the Torah, I read, what you learn from here is it's not enough to come to the land. You have to inherit it. It's not enough to inherit it. You have to sit in it, to settle it. And that's what Tatzpit help us to do. So please help them to help us. Thank you very much. If you want Jordan's Palestine plan, I have some copies here for you. Rabbi.
Thank you very much. All right, I want to thank Dr. Eldad for his very cogent and incisive analysis of events today. It's sobering, but the first step to knowledge is the bursting of illusions, and that will only help us closer to a solution. And I want to thank Dr. Eldad very much for his father's Sefer. I had the great privilege of meeting your father. It was 36 years ago, Yom Yerushalayim. He came to speak in our yeshiva, and it was very inspirational then. We'll have questions from the audience for Dr. Eldad in a few moments. I want to first call upon Mark Provisor, who's the Director of Security Projects for the One Israel Fund, to say a few words, then we'll take questions.
Erev Tov. First, I want to thank the Chaver Knesset, Dr. Eldad, and for all of you for coming out. As the Rav said, my name is Mark. I'm from Shiloh, and I work with the security projects all throughout Yudan and Shomron. We're coming across upon a new year soon. Zrat Hashem Shana Tova. And I want to start it with a little bit of a chidush, a little bit of a, believe it or not, I don't know how to say chidush in English, but let's say a new concept. One Israel Fund. A lot of people know us why we're working with the Yeshuvim, with the communities of Yudan and Shomron. Most people know me from my security side, whether we're doing humanitarian things. It's a human rights organization. It's an organization that works to give the basic rights to over 320,000 people living in our heartland, in Yudan and Shomron. Indeed, we're going to, during the Haftorah, Rosh Hashanah that's coming, you're going to read about my town. Dr. Eldad mentioned preventive medicine. This is the strategy what we take also. We've been responding too much. We're looking to stop just responding, but we're looking to prevent. Before you leave tonight, and before we get to the questions, obviously, you're going to see some materials in the back, some posters. I want you to pick them up, take them with you, and go over them and give them some thought. In my little world of security, we look to prevent terrorists from coming to the Yeshuvim. Even tonight, we have with us a very special individual, Amo Tzayal, who works with an organization called Tatspit, that looks to bring the truth out, not just what you're seeing from the media, the manipulated reports you're seeing, but to actually bring things and see it as it really is. So I want you to remember this organization that today that we're here. There are 320,000 Jews today living in Yudan and Shomron. And we're there not just for security reasons. We're there because it's our home. It's our history. And it's our future. So again, thank you all for coming. We're going to be hanging around if you have other questions also regarding to what we're doing. And mind you, especially in the face of a very unsure future regarding also security. And for those of you, God willing, when you come to Israel soon, mamash soon, don't be shy. Take our cards, give a call. Come and see Tachlis what's going on. And connect in a very, very serious, in a very meaningful way. It'll be our pleasure. So thank you again. I'm going to call for Dr. Eldad to come up to answer some questions. Shana Tova.
I want to welcome Scott Feldman, who's the Executive Vice President of the One Israel Fund. And from our shul, I want to thank Yigal Marcus for all he did in organizing the evening tonight. He's informed me that tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. at Times Square, there's a pro-Palestinian rally that's to take place. Called, what's that? 5:30. But if we get there 4:30, we'll be there first. No. You want?
I brought this information to the synagogue.
Yeah.
They're gathering at 4:30 at 5:30, they're marching on the UN.
Oh, okay. So people are encouraged to meet at 7th Avenue and 43rd Street at 4:30 in order to have a counter rally. Bring homemade signs. Okay, questions for Dr. Eldad? Yes, sir.
Dr. Eldad, I guess you and everybody in this room knows there was a special congressional election yesterday, which in many senses was a referendum on Obama's position on Israel, and Obama was soundly trashed. I want to add a personal detail because I was out on Kings Highway, which is a fairly busy street in the district, and I was there to really emphasize the Israel aspect of this. And I had a sign that said, "No, President Obama, Israel will not commit suicide." And people would come by and ask me, what did that sign mean? I would presume most of the people asking me were not Jewish. And so I explained to them, as was explained in the film, maybe not as eloquently, but basically that's vital territory that Israel must have to have a defensible country. And I'd say 80 to 90% of the people I said that to got it. They understood Israel can't give up this land. So it's not really a question, but a hope that you can take this testimony to the people in the government, maybe even Netanyahu himself, and say it's time he stopped being scared of Obama, and it's time he recognizes, and the Israeli government recognizes, that if they make their case, Americans will listen and agree with the Israeli case.
So let's put in the form of a question. What do you think American Jews can do in order to either weaken Obama or to present our case in a much better way to him?
I think Netanyahu had a wonderful reception at the Congress 2 months ago. How long was it? Amazing. And he could really drew a lot of courage from the support that he got there. But again, he is trying to avoid any direct collision with the president, even though he could. The threat not to veto Palestinian request to be accepted to the United Nations is a bluff. The president knows that he cannot do it.
Why?
Technically he can, but he will have no Congress.
He'll be defeated.
And a recent decision of the Supreme Court in the state said that the Congress is at least as responsible for foreign policy as the president. For years it was accepted that this is the territory of the president. The Congress has nothing to do with it. More and more congressmen understand that it's their duty to supervise the president on foreign affairs issues. That's something that you can continuously write to your congressmen, to your senators, to your representative, demand, condition any support of your representative with other issues on removal of the pressure on Israel. Don't corner Israel, don't press Israel to take suicidal steps. These are things that every American citizen can do, and encourage your friend and your mailing list to do it all over the country, so it should come from various congressmen. It's obvious that it's easier to speak with Republicans. I know, I tried it in the Congress, but there are some Democrats that may do the same thing.
Professor.
Seymour Reich had another letter, I don't know if you saw it in the New York Times today. He was president of major Jewish organizations. So I understand what you're saying about President Obama, but the issue is really an internal one in the Jewish life as well. In other words, the Israeli left as well as the American middle of the road challenged Netanyahu to go along with Obama. Could you comment on that? In other words, what I want you to address, Dr. Eldad, is not only the external issue challenging Netanyahu, but also the internal Jewish dynamics.
I didn't read the New York Times. That's your punishment. My punishment's called Haaretz. It's pretty much the same thing, the same amount of punishment. But it's true that we have Jews here and in Israel who put tremendous amount of pressure on Netanyahu to obey, to give them a state, try to prove and to persuade themselves and the world that this is our interest, not that we are enforced to do so, but this is our interest, that they should have a state. And they used to sell us the promised land for peace. Now it doesn't work. Nobody speaks about peace in Israel. Now they want to sell it as land for demography. We must get rid of the land in order to get rid of the demographical burden. It's true that if we will annex Judea and Samaria, and the border of the state of Israel will be the Jordan, we will have something like 40 or 45% Arabs and 55 or 60% Jews. But the solution first described by UNSCOP, United Nations Special Committee on Palestine. They arrived in Israel in 1947, a few months before the UN resolution of partition of Palestine. And they recommended, this was adopted in November, they recommended that Palestine will be divided to an Arab state and a Jewish state. But they noticed that in the Jewish state to be, there are 600,000 Jews and 400,000 Arabs. And they recommended that the Arabs in the Jewish state will be residents of the Jewish state and citizens of the Arab state. They won't change the demography of the Jewish state. What's a demography? It's the bills that we make in the Knesset. What's Shabbat? What's the flag? What's the national anthem? What's the sign of the state? What are the right of return, the law of return of the Jewish to the Jewish state? That's a Zionist, the basic law that every Jew has the right to come to Israel and become a citizen immediately. That's a law that characterizes the Israel as a Jewish state. If the Arab will be the majority, they will have different type of rules. So we don't want them to be the majority in the Knesset. We don't have to be afraid if they will be 45% of the residents of the country, but not the citizens. So if Jordan is Palestine, and this I think is inevitable, it will happen, whether we want it or not, whether we like King Abdallah or not, Jordan will become Palestine. The Arab population in Judea and Samaria will be Israel residents and population and citizens of Jordan as they were before, as they were until 1967. All the Arabs in Judea and Samaria had Jordanian citizenship because Jordan granted them citizenship. The only Arab country that gave the Palestinian citizenship was Jordan. So differentiation between citizenship and residency can at least remove some of the pressures on Israel, and we will not scare ourselves with demography.
Yeah, from an American context, we all recognize that there are millions of people living in America who are green cards, legal residents. They have no right to vote. They get everything else for free, but they have no right to vote. So it's a very common distinction that's made. Susan.
Yes. A couple of weeks ago, Foreign Minister Lieberman was very direct when he said that if there will be no Jews in Palestine, there will be no Arabs in the Jewish state of Israel. It resonated very clearly on Capitol Hill. On Capitol Hill, when you speak to congressmen, you say, listen, there are Arab villages in Israel. If there's going to be a state of Palestine, why can't there be Jewish villages in what would be Palestine? Why do the people have to move? And you have people in Congress who nod their head because it makes a great deal of sense. This morning, I think it was the first time I ever saw it direct, certainly we all knew it, but it was the first time it was directly stated by the Palestinians that there will be no Jews allowed to live in Palestine. Is there a, in the state that they hope to have declared on September 20th, is there a feeling in Israel that if there's going to be some kind of movement, that there will be no Arabs living in Israel? If you can't have Jews in Palestine, will there be no Arabs? What happens to the Israeli Arabs?
I have to repeat the question for the videos. The question is, the Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman stated that if Jews should be able to live in a state of Palestine like Israelis or like Arabs live in the state of Israel. The Arabs repudiated that notion today and said no Jew can live in the state of Palestine. Question of Susan Rosenbluth is, if that's the case, is there a movement therefore to transfer the Arabs from the land of Israel?
What else can you do?
We will transfer. We will transfer. I'm afraid that the government of Israel will transfer Jews by force from their homes in Judea and Samaria if we will not stop them, if we will not prevent them. They will not move a single Arab from his home in Israel. Lieberman knows that. He knows it's a beautiful slogan. It works for elections. He knows that the Supreme Court in Israel will not allow to drive a single Arab from his home. So that's very nice things to say, but it won't happen. Therefore, there isn't any real suggestion for exchange of population. It will be unilateral transfer of Jews as happened in Gush Katif.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Koch spoke about this today, and it's also been my experience that we have such a natural ally in the Christians in this country, first of all, who want to be Christians and feel that they're battling radical Islam, as are we. The Christians United for Israel are fiercely dedicated to our cause, and Glenn Beck as well. And I just wondered if you find them natural allies as well, and if there's a way to use them. They're the majority in this country, and I believe the majority of Christians read the Bible, believe in the Bible, and will support us. And I know that obviously our history is something that makes us exceedingly reticent to ally with them, but I wanted to know what your opinion is on that.
For years, I didn't understand why do you need so many Shabbos goyim. Now I know. I will be in Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in south of Los Angeles, Friday and Saturday. I'll preach to the choir, I'm afraid. They are stronger supporters of Israel than many of my colleagues in the Knesset. But I want to translate their support into action items, to ask them how to put pressure on the White House, how to support their candidates that will run against him. Yeah, that's very important. I agree with you.
1 second, but let me just ask this question because it relates to what you just said, and it's something that I remember I discussed with Ketzel a few years ago. Obviously, like you said before, half the people in Israel, roughly, don't even accept the fact that the land belongs to the Jewish people. They're willing to accommodate the narrative of another. It's a very difficult situation. How does a politician, therefore, get his message out to a populace that's geared to listen to only good news and expect promises that cannot be fulfilled but serve as the basis for platforms in an election campaign? Just say almost every person runs for prime minister promises in some way or another to bring peace. And they all fail. Not because of them, they all fail. But that's why the society splits, first voting for right, then left, then right, then left. They go back and forth because each are lying to them. What success can a politician have who tells the truth that peace is not coming anytime soon?
You actually point to the reason why I will not be the Prime Minister of Israel. It's people hate those who tell them bad news. Even though they know it, I think if you'll ask, the majority of Israelis will say, no, we will never have peace with the Arabs. But when somebody who is running to be a prime minister tells them, listen, we are not going to have peace, he'll not be elected. People knows the truth, and still they want their leaders to lie to them, to promise them that if they only do this or that, and of course elect them, they'll have something that will be so much better. Look what happened to your Messiah. Yes, we can, everything. The highest that he climbed, the lowest that he will crash. But eventually, because he was giving the people new hope, that's what the people like. Give them hope. If I'll tell them it's a religious war, we are not going to have peace with the Arabs, they know I'm right, but they still want somebody who will lie to them.
He gave us hope, and now we have a little change left in our pockets. Yes, sir.
I'm impressed with your clarity of your thinking. I think the Democrats are a lost cause. The Republican nomination is coming down to Perry and Romney, let's say, who represent different wings of the Republican Party. I would like to know if, in your opinion, I'd like you to comment on both of those individuals, because
I truly don't know.
Because, and if you don't, I would recommend that Israelis get familiar with them, because they are the future for possible help.
My knowledge of both of them is so superficial that I wouldn't.
Well, Romney says that he represents